Hello everyone, David here, MixBus TV. Hope you guys are having a great day. Here we are with another full-length, start-to-finish mixing course. This time around is heavy rock. We're gonna break down the mix for an awesome sounding song titled Locomotive in the style of Alter Bridge, Killswitch Engage, Blackstone Cherry, and so on. Great musicians, awesome raw performances, all real instruments. In this course, you're gonna learn how to mix huge, powerful sounding drums while shaking bass, big and wide electric guitars, and of course, vocals. We're gonna see all the settings for the plugins, analog gear, and of course, we're gonna go through all the moves and the thought process and the why of each single move. Parts of this course are gonna be available on YouTube for everybody for free, but if you want the full course, you can buy it right now at this email or click the join button, become a MixBus TV member, and enjoy the courses. Without further ado, let's get to it. All right, first thing first, let's hear the final mix. So this is the mix, the final mix, not the mastered, although I already mastered the track. You can see is this one next to it, and this is actually our mix. And you can see one thing right away. We start the lesson, we have a great crest factor, and at the same time a really punchy drums, kick and snare, hit hard. But as you can see, we don't see those tall spikes that are so very common in certain mixes, and we are going to see how to achieve that and many other things in this course. Then we have the snares. Now, when I mix rock like this, I want to say signature thing in my mixes is the snare sound. I never do two snares that sound the same unless I'm doing an album, and even then. So I usually spend a lot of time, a good amount of hours, going through all my samples and mix and match them until I create my own custom signature snare sound for that given mix. I like to do it, and I think it yields better results at the end. For this sample snare, I used both the Superior Drummer 3 and Perfect Drums, and also some samples that I have on Drumagog still from probably 10 years ago. So we have the first snare that sounds like this. Let me bypass the processing again on these. This is my first snare. This is my second snare. This is my third snare. And then I also printed from the third snare sample, which is a Joy Jordison sample that I had. The snare room, the snare verb, And then I have another sample snare, which is called the low snare. And I'm going to tell you what I was looking for when stacking all these samples. All right, putting this type of electronic snares It's a trick that I learned from the mix engineer of Nickelback. He liked to use samples from a specific drum machine from the 80s. I have my choice for these kind of samples. We are very similar in that. And then the last snare samples, I used it only on certain parts. So you can see it's muted for the most part, and it only comes out when we have the halftime. What's the thought process in selecting these sounds? When I think about snare for a huge rock song like this one, I want the snap. Of course, I want the clean, very punchy transient, right? I want the crack, so the energy around, I want to say 1K. I want length, so sustain and the tail, right? I don't want a short snare because it's going to get lost in the guitars. And then I want the body, the low snare, which is going to be tucked in. And then the extra snare for special parts. So this one is my crack snare, is my, let's say, main voice. Right? That energy in the middle. The second is both the punchy snare, the punchy transient, the really woody transient, and a little bit of tail. The second is the super powerful snap. That's the energy. And then we have the room and the reverb, and the low snare is for the body. All of them together sound like this. And when the explosive snare comes in, with the processing, you will hear more difference when the explosive snare come in. Snare number 1 has console 1 again. We are using SSL channel. You see my processing here is very minimal because I hand-picked the samples for the snare to work well together. So I'm not, again, just like for the kick, I'm not gonna mess with the EQ too much here. I don't have any compression. I have drive and 1 dB at AK. For snare number 2, we have console 1 with just drive, no EQ, no compression. For snare number 3, our snap, we have a little bit of top end and drive. We can hear this one. So without and with. And this is going to make a lot of difference when we put it with the other ones. On the room, we have just a little bit of saturation, and so on the verb. And on the low snare, instead, we have a little bit of processing. We can solo this one and hear the difference. We have a little boost at around 134, cut at 18, just to make sure we don't have sub energy in there, even though it's a low snare, we don't need 20 over there. Without. Just a little more body, okay? Then we have our explosion snare when we have 2 processes here. Console 1 with just drive and a high cut at AK. The reason is because this snare otherwise was a little too bright at the top, and I already have brightness from the others. So without. And of course, as you can see, I raised the level, and then I made it stereo with .RMS. Now you are going to hear the difference when this snare comes up. Extra energy, okay? And that's in the half tempo. So we need things to get heavier there. All the snares go to a snare sum, so that's the, so to speak, bulk of the processing, even though, again, when you spend so much time selecting samples and sounds that fill up all the areas, you really don't need that much EQ, okay? But we did definitely need compression. And here is where we have our first analog unit. On this snare, I have the fatso and I have the fatso pushing really hard. We're gonna see it in a minute. We have console 1 first, and we have here a little bit of EQ, a cut of 57, a little bit of saturation again, and a little bit of boost at 16K in shelf. So far, we only used SSL 4000 for all the channels, saturation, compression, everything. We didn't change anything. That's usually my go-to, especially for rock. It's either API or SSL, but 90% of the time is all SSL, and then I add my other colors with analog. So fatso for the snare, we're gonna see on the drum bus, there is actually another fatso on the entire drum and the API. The API is a color that I really like for drums, and usually that's where the EQ sits on. Before moving the camera to the fatso, let's hear with and without. So this is without. This is with. Before looking at the settings of the fatso, after the fatso, we have the Brickwall HD again to control the nominal level and shave a little bit of peak. Let's take a look at the fatso settings. All right, numbers are relative, of course, but so you have a reference, we are pushing the input to 7, compensating for the output at 2. Of course, this is a stereo snare, so the channels are linked. You're not seeing it right now, but my ELFTC, the threshold control that I have, the little box there to control the threshold of the fatso, is at 0, so that means it's stock. It would be like I don't have it at all. We are in bus mode, transformers are on, and this is without. You should be able to hear two things. First of all, more snappiness, of course, for the snare. A little bit more excitement at the top end. That's the transformer. But at the same time, we are containing the harshness with the warm circuit. Let's play it again. A lot more punch, a lot more sustain. That's what's on our snare. If you are on YouTube and the video stops here, I hope you liked it. And if you did, please don't forget to leave a like, support the channel, use the super thanks, and subscribe. If you want to buy the full course, you can write to this email or join the channel as a member and enjoy all the courses. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. Stay safe. See you next time.
Hands on my neck, hands grip my throat. Lift me up, man, take control. Heart is so